Hello everybody, welcome back to another election prediction video. In this video we have Kamala Harris if she picks Roy Cooper as her vice presidential candidate. So I think Roy Cooper, he's a pretty good pick. He would probably help out Harris greatly in the state of North Carolina and even neighboring Georgia. I think there's an effect on that too. But again, I think he's a good moderate Democrat to pick here, especially if you're wanting to balance out the ticket, because, again, Harris does have some left-wing policy positions which excite the Democratic base, but you need to try to appeal to those moderate voters here, and I think Roy Cooper's a good way of accomplishing that. He may be a bit of a more boring pick, but it's a safe pick. So if you want to win the election, sometimes you got to roll with a boring choice. So let's just get right into this. So Iowa and Ohio, those are just off the board. Again, these states have been always trending against the Democrats, and they're probably going to continue being that way for the future. In the state of Colorado, it's safe blue. New Mexico is probably going to be likely blue as well, probably an 8 to 9 point victory for Harris. Virginia would probably be safe blue with a Cooper pick. Again, he would help out in neighboring Virginia and Georgia being from North Carolina, so I'd probably put Virginia as a safe blue state. I think it would help out a bit here on the North Carolina/Virginia border. But going down to Florida, I think this is kind of off the board for Democrats. Even though they're getting a lot of volunteers in this state, I just don't think they could win it. I just think it's still out of reach for Democrats. I still think it's kind of a pipe dream to imagine that Florida could ever go blue again. Again, party registration numbers, they aren't the best for Democrats in the state of Florida. It's constantly going against them. Latino voters have pretty much shifted towards the Republicans massively in this state, and that's kind of the reason why it's kind of off the board for Democrats. The state of Texas, however, with a Roy Cooper VP pick, in this southern state right here, I think that's enough to shift this state actually to lean Republican. I think Trump would only win it by 4 if Harris were to pick Roy Cooper. I think he would help her out quite a bit in the state of Texas. She would get very high black turnout here, do decent with Latinos. It's enough to make it as a lean red state if she picks Roy Cooper. I think that'll be that much of an effect if she were to pick him. Again, we would see those urban turnout go very high for Harris. She would probably do a bit better than Biden in a lot of those urban areas in Texas, which would be enough to shift it into a lean Republican state if she were to pick Roy Cooper, which would give her a boost in a lot of these southern states. Going over to Nevada and Arizona, again, Cooper, he wouldn't really have an effect on these western states because of Trump's no taxes on tips policy, and overall his lead in Nevada's been pretty consistent this whole time. It's a lean Republican state right now if she were to pick Roy Cooper. Arizona, however, immigration is one of their top issues, and I think that's one of Harris's weaknesses in this election. And I don't think Roy Cooper would help her out a lot in this western state of Arizona, which is why I have this as a narrow tilt Republican state. Moving on to the states of Maine and New Hampshire, I think these states are just kind of out of reach for the Trump campaign, according to recent polls. And I even think Maine second would get dragged down to likely Republican. Minnesota is pretty much also out of reach. We've seen a lot of new polling here showing up Harris up by around 8% on average. So I think this is kind of out of the realm of possibility for Trump to win here in this scenario. I'd also put Nebraska second into the likely blue column as well. So we already have Harris's floor set up. Going into the next few states, the state of Georgia, I think that a Roy Cooper VP pick would help energize the base here in the state of Georgia. It is from neighboring North Carolina. I think she would do a bit better with Roy Cooper as the VP pick here in this state. I think she would get good black turnout, win over a bit more moderate independents here in the state of Georgia, and that'll be enough to shift it to a lean blue state if she were to pick Roy Cooper as her choice. North Carolina would also flip blue if she were to pick Roy Cooper as the VP option. I really do think that be enough to make North Carolina go blue again. Again, it only went red by 1 point back in 2020, and I think for all intents and purposes, Harris is a lot more energizing as a Democratic candidate than Joe Biden is. So I'm putting this state as a tilt blue state. I think Harris could probably do a lot more rallies than Donald Trump can just due to his old age. He's 78 years old. He's not 4 years younger like he was before. He isn't 74 anymore like he wasn't back in 2020 where he could do rallies nonstop. He's pretty aged at this point. So now we're down to the blue wall states in the Rust Belt. So I think the most likely state to go to Harris in this Rust Belt area is Michigan. Again, I just think it has a lot of black voters in this state. I think she's going to energize them to turn out here. When you have a black candidate on top of the ticket as the president, like we saw back with Obama, we saw black turnout go sky high. So I think we might see that again with Harris on the top of the ticket here. So I think she'll get very good black turnout. She'll win over the independents. Roy Cooper's a solid VP pick too. So I think the state's very likely to go to Harris, which is why I have it lean blue, not tilt blue. Wisconsin, on the other hand, it's more of a rural state, so I could see Harris struggling a bit here in Cooper. He wouldn't really help out being from the South and this more Rust Belt / Midwestern state, and I still think populist voters would kind of lean a bit more towards Trump here. But I would only put it as tilt Republican. Polls have it as a very close race here in Wisconsin. Pennsylvania is about dead even. But I think we're starting to see Harris get a lot of momentum here. She's gaining on Trump. She's right behind him, or no, not even right behind him. She's tied with him, 49-49, that Fox News poll said. So I think Roy Cooper is a VP pick. It would probably help her with independence. Probably wouldn't help her a lot considering Pennsylvania isn't a southern state. But I just think overall, I think Harris could probably narrowly take the state of Pennsylvania against Donald Trump here. I just think that's kind of what's going to happen. Most scenarios think Pennsylvania's probably going to end up going blue at this point. Again, Harris is not at her peak yet. So she's tied with Trump, but not at her peak. The peak will be after the DNC convention. This is the polls after the RNC, after Harris announced her run for the presidency. So again, I think Harris has more room to grow, and I think we're going to continue seeing that happen in most of these states. So this is my prediction. If Roy Cooper were to be the VP candidate for Kamala Harris, let me know what you think of this video down in the comments below. And if you're new to this channel and you enjoy content like this, I would highly encourage subscribing. I would greatly appreciate it. But yeah, I think that Harris would have a pretty good shot here at winning. Again, I would probably see the popular vote going to Harris in a scenario like this by like 3%. Kind of basing it off what I see the map as, I think it'll probably go to her by about 3 overall. But yeah, I should include the popular vote totals. I forgot to include that in the last video with Mark Kelly as the VP candidate. It probably would have been about a 3% popular vote win as well, just based on the map I did. But other than that, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.